Wife and I see no reason to engage with Mill anymore. How do we cut ties? My Mill has been childish since my wife gave birth to our son about a year ago, and we think we've had enough. My wife told her mom that she didn't want her at our son's birth. Mill was a nurse midwife for 20 years and said she could be an asset. My wife's sister-in-law said that having Mill at her daughter's birth was a nightmare. She was controlling, yelling, demanding, and, maybe TMI, held Syl's legs open as a way of helping during childbirth. Syl jokes about it now, but says it was like a sitcom how awful T was to have Mill there. Armed with that information, we politely / empathetically / friendly / carefully said that we did not want her there. In response, Mill has been throwing a quiet, red, passive-aggressive, fit about this for almost a year. Thus, she's visited the baby once and held him for about 10 minutes. Her son, Bill, talked with her about it. She admitted that she's still hurt about not being invited to the birth and that if we didn't want her then, she doesn't feel the need to try at all. So, the baby's birthday is coming up. We invited her. She made a bunch of excuses. Bill got it out of her that she was making stuff up to avoid the party. Since she said that she wouldn't be attending, I gave the guest room to my mom. What were we supposed to do? Hold it for someone who told us she wasn't coming? Bill convinced her that she should make an effort to see the baby. Now, she wants to come to the party. Great, but there's no room for her. She can stay in a hotel, but our house is booked up with people who said yes months ago. Mill was given the same opportunity, not 2 weeks in advance. So, Mill is mad that we're choosing my mom, the person who said yes months ago, over her. Phil hasn't ever offered to visit the baby. My wife and I are feeling like this is the last straw, and we're debating cutting ties entirely. I'd love to. She and Phil are hoarders, they smell up our house when they visit, they're rude, always bickering and yelling at each other, constantly infantilizing my wife, and, now, ignoring our baby because Mill didn't get her way. I think it's unfair to ghost them. My wife doesn't want to explain why we're cutting ties. So, we're caught in the middle. What's a mature, adult way of cutting ties? Are we the jerks here? Comment. Just ghost. People like your Mill can't be reasoned with and would only take your explanation as an opportunity to argue and negotiate. If you don't want her in your life, drop the rope and carry on living your best life. 100% agree. Just ghost and move on living. I did this with my mother, and I have absolutely no regrets. I will say to be aware of her trying to worm her way back in with your wife over time. My mother tried to do this at my late husband's funeral with me, the first time I had seen her in 6 years, cause she decided that my late husband's funeral was the best place to do this after I ignored her post and calls, and displayed a shocked Pikachu face when I denied her. Mill, you had first dibs to the room. When you made it known you would not be coming, we gave it to the next person in line. While you cry thinking we choose the other mom, how do you think she felt when we could not commit the room until we knew what was going on with you? We are over this pettiness. Grow up, act like an adult, until then we are out. I probably would most likely just stand by your wife with her approach and decisions. It is her mom. She's prob jealous of your mom getting to stay with you and now wants to come. My Mill is the same way, wants to be involved but only on her own terms, and then gets jealous when we spend more time with my family. You're not being a jerk, and if your wife wants to ghost them, I'd let her make the call, but I do think it would be okay to just tell it to them straight. Next story 2. Surprise. Mill is the worst. My Mill literally makes me cringe. But the events around the birth of our baby just put it over the top. My hubby and I had our first baby during a rare spring snowstorm. Mill lives about an hour away in a rural area, so we told her we would let her know when baby was here. My husband texted her to let her know, baby was born super early AM. No response. 12 hours after baby was here, my dad calls me, he was shoveling our sidewalks at our house, and says my mill is at our house with a U-Haul trailer, and said she wanted my husband to come over and help her unload everything, used kitchen cabinets for a possible project we had briefly mentioned months prior. She kept calling my husband to come over and help her. 12 hours after baby is here. He asked if she read the text and she was like, yeah, I wanted to surprise you all. Hubby went over to help her and said he didn't want her to drive to the hospital with a U-Haul trailer. She is the worst driver ever, and she took that as we didn't want her to meet baby. Not the case. She then asked if my hubby could pick her up at our house, 30 minutes from hospital, and then drive her back. He said no, he wanted to be with us. He mentioned she could drop the U-Haul trailer and just drive over, but that didn't register with her. She gets home and hubby comes back to the hospital. His aunt calls, wanting to bitch him out for telling his mom we didn't want her to meet the baby. He calls his mom and she said she was hurt and sad cause we are keeping baby from her. She then posts a picture of baby on Facebook, before we even announced his birth. She said she's excited for her first grandbaby. Not true, she has 3 others. She then invited herself to come visit a few days later and spend the night. Whatever. Fine. She shows up and asks what's for dinner. We had just gotten home from the hospital 2 days prior. My husband went and got a pizza. She brought gifts too, clearance dollar store girl clothes in size 4T, for the next baby. We had a boy. She didn't offer to help us with anything and creepily stared at me while I was holding our baby. We let her hold him for maybe 15 minutes after having to repeatedly remind her not to kiss him or touch his face or do a bunch of other things. She finally left the next day and that was the last time she's seen him. It's been over 3 months and she hasn't once asked to come and see him. We aren't going to bring him up to their place. She lives in a trailer with her other son that looks like it should be on hoarders. I don't feel it is safe for our baby, or anyone in general, but yet, she claims us and her other kids are keeping her grandkids from her. I'm guessing same situation, kind of a broken family there. She comments on the pictures I post asking stupid questions, like why our son has a pacifier in. Lord help us as she comes this next weekend for our son's baptism. Comment. You know, you are allowed to block her on socials. You are allowed to block her phone. But, you are also allowed to correct her. So what happened to grandchild 1, 2, and 3 then? Or the pacifier, go snarky sorry, we were out of Jack Daniels. Seriously, both of you are allowed to say no, or not now. She throws a tantrum. Her problem. Do you think you need permission to do so from another adult? 50-year-old grumpy bugger here says you have it. Thank your stars she's stayed away. Block her. Not your monkey. Let DH deal with that circus. When she comes, and expects dinner, just look at her blankly and ask, oh nice. What did you bring? Don't offer her anything. Make DH do dinner if she doesn't. In future, when she does come, tell her baby is in a strict schedule and she can come between these 2 hours. Then she'll have to leave. House rules. Don't give reasons or excuses. 2 hours max.